I'm 29 and up until a month ago, I thought I had a pretty normal, boring financial life. No huge debts, decent credit score, a job I didn't love but that paid the bills, and a small apartment I shared with my dog. Life wasn't amazing, but it was stable, and that was enough for me. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter from a collections attorney. At first I thought it was junk mail. I was seconds away from shredding it when something caught my eye. A very familiar name in bold across the top of the second page. My full name, legal middle name and all. And right underneath that, a balance due of $153,434. I honestly thought it was a scam. No way had I taken out a loan that massive. But curiosity got the better of me and I called the number. The woman on the other end was extremely serious and very not scammy. She told me I was being sued for defaulting on a loan I had taken out almost 3 years ago. I laughed, literally laughed out loud. Then I told her there must be some mistake. I hadn't taken out any loan. She asked me to verify some information, and when she listed off my address, my date of birth, and the last 4 digits of my social security number, I stopped laughing. I told her I needed time to investigate, and she said I had 2 weeks before it would go to court. I got off the phone, completely panicked, and immediately checked my credit report, and there it was. Right there on the report. A $150,000 personal loan taken out 3 years ago. Every single monthly payment had been missed since month 9. My credit score had already tanked, and I hadn't even noticed. I'd always assumed my credit stayed good because I paid off one credit card and didn't borrow much. Apparently, someone else had. I had to sit down. I remember just staring at the screen, heart pounding. It didn't make sense. I never saw any approval note, no checks, no email. I didn't even apply for a loan back then. I was still living with my dad after grad school, trying to save up to move out. Wait, I was living with my dad. That's when the tiniest thread of a horrible thought slipped into my mind. I didn't want to believe it, not even a little. My dad has never been perfect, but he's my dad. He raised me alone after my mom left when I was 10. He coached my little league team, helped me buy my first car, cried when I got my master's degree. There's no way he would do something like this, right? But then again, 3 years ago, I was still living with him. He had access to my documents, my mail, even my old laptop, which I left behind when I upgraded. I trusted him completely back then. I would have handed over my social security number without blinking if he'd needed it for tax stuff or some random form. I couldn't shake the feeling, though, so I did something I hadn't done in a while. I called him. He sounded surprised to hear from me, but cheerful. Asked about my dog. I pretended everything was normal and asked him if he remembered anything weird about my mail from a few years back. Like, had I maybe gotten anything from a loan company? He paused, just for a second. Then he said no. Not that he could recall. I pressed a little. Told him someone had apparently taken out a big loan in my name, and I was trying to get to the bottom of it, that I needed to file a police report, that the loan company was demanding to know where the money went. Dead silence. Then he said, well, if something did happen, you know I'd help however I could. My heart sank. That wasn't a denial. That was damage control. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I dug deeper. I went through every old document I could find in my cloud backups. Eventually, I found an old email from a financial institution I didn't recognize, sent to my inbox 3 years ago. It was flagged as spam. It said, your loan has been approved. The bank name matched the one from the debt collector, and the IP address from the account setup email. My dad's home address. The one I was living at back then. I felt sick. I wanted to scream. Not just because I felt betrayed, but because I still couldn't wrap my head around why. What would possess my own dad to take out a $150,000 loan in my name? Where did the money even go? So I made a decision. I wasn't going to accuse him. Not yet. I needed proof. Cold, hard proof. I didn't want to blow up my entire relationship with him based on a hunch and a sketchy email. I needed to be 100% sure. The next day, I called the bank listed on the loan documents. I gave them the reference number from my credit report and asked for a statement. They wouldn't give me full details without a subpoena, but they confirmed something that made my blood run cold. The account had been opened online using my name, my date of birth, and my social. The linked email wasn't mine, but it was 1 letter off from my personal Gmail, a typo I used to make all the time when logging into things on my dad's desktop. It also had a phone number tied to the account. I Googled it. Guess who used that number as his backup line on his Facebook account? My dad. There it was. There was no more room for doubt. My father had stolen my identity. He'd opened a massive loan in my name and let it rot for years, destroying my credit while I remained completely in the dark. The betrayal was worse than I could have imagined. And still, I didn't know why. Why $150,000? What did he need that kind of money for? I knew I wouldn't get answers unless I confronted him. So I went to his house. I hadn't been back there in nearly a year. Not since we had a small falling out about politics of all things. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed his car wasn't in great shape. Rust spots, cracked windshield, duct tape on the bumper. I knocked, heart racing. He opened the door in pajamas. Looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Slower. He smiled when he saw me, but his eyes didn't light up. He knew. I walked past him into the living room, and I asked him, without any sugarcoating, "Did you take out a $150,000 loan in my name?" He sat down heavily, didn't deny it, didn't say a word, just buried his face in his hands and muttered something I'll never forget. "I was trying to fix everything before you ever had to find out." I stood there in total silence. His words just echoed in my head. "I was trying to fix everything before you ever had to find out." Like that made it okay. Like wrecking my credit and dragging my name into 6 figures of debt was some noble mission. I asked him to explain. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, arms crossed, trying to stay upright because the ground felt like it was tilting beneath me. That's when he started talking. 3 years ago, around the same time I moved out, he lost his job. He never told me. He said he didn't want me to worry. I would have understood. I could have helped, but instead of reaching out to me or even filing for unemployment, he tried to handle it himself. He'd already been behind on mortgage payments. The house was underwater. Credit card debt had piled up. Then the IRS started sending letters. He was drowning. So when he found one of those instant loan approval ads online, he clicked it, said it felt like a lifeline. But when he saw the approval rate for someone with my credit and income, he panicked. He used my information, told himself it was temporary, that he'd make the payments until he got back on his feet, that I'd never even have to know. He kept saying that over and over. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I asked him where the money went, all of it. Some went toward catching up on the mortgage. Some paid off his credit cards. A chunk was used to pay back taxes. But the rest? Gambling. I didn't even know my dad gambled. Turns out he'd been betting online for years. Sports, mostly. He thought he could make quick wins to double or triple the loan, then pay it back fast. He wasn't trying to steal from me, he said. He was trying to win us both a better future. But it didn't work. He lost almost $40,000 in the first 6 months. After that, he gave up, stopped making payments. Then he started ignoring the mail, pretending the loan didn't exist, hoping, somehow, it would all go away. He looked at me then, eyes full of shame, and said, "I was waiting for the right time to tell you. I just needed a little more time to make it right." A little more time? 3 years. I couldn't even look at him. 3 years. He had 3 whole years to come clean, and instead he just kept digging the hole deeper while I walked around completely oblivious. I was building my life, applying for apartments, credit cards, jobs, and I had no idea there was a financial time bomb ticking under my name. I asked him why he didn't just tell me when he first lost control of it. His answer? "Because I thought you'd never speak to me again, and now that might still end up being true." I left without saying goodbye. I got in my car and drove until I couldn't feel my face anymore. I don't even remember where I went, just that I ended up parked outside a grocery store, sitting in my car, staring at my phone. That's when the second nightmare started. I called a lawyer. She confirmed what I was afraid of. Even though I didn't open the loan myself, I could still be held responsible for it unless I pressed charges against my father and proved it was identity theft, which meant not just reporting him to the police, but cooperating fully in an investigation, going to court, signing statements, maybe even testifying. It also meant that if I did nothing, I'd probably lose the case, and my wages could be garnished. For years, I couldn't breathe. I thought about my dad in that old house, alone, surrounded by debt and guilt. I thought about him crying into his hands like a broken man, but then I thought about me, about my future, about the job I just applied for that requires a credit check, about the loan I was planning to get next year to finally buy my own place. He stole that from me. He took it all. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't stop picturing both versions of the future, the one where I destroyed my dad's life, and the one where he'd already destroyed mine. And then the next morning, I got a call, from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, it was a woman from the fraud department at the loan company. She said she was calling because something had just triggered a suspicious activity flag on my account. Something new, something very recent. The woman on the phone sounded concerned, professional, but you could hear it in her voice. She knew I had no idea what was happening. She asked if I'd recently tried to update the email or phone number on the loan account. I hadn't. She then told me someone had tried to log in and change the recovery options on the account just an IP address. Same town my dad lived in. Same exact service provider. Her words were careful, like she wasn't allowed to accuse anyone, but I knew what she was really saying. It was him. Again. After everything, he was still messing with the account, still trying to dig around in the back end, maybe to change the contact, lock me out, delete something. I didn't know, but whatever he was doing, it wasn't innocent. I asked if they could lock the account or freeze it. She said yes, but only with a formal fraud investigation, which meant, again, I had to decide. Do I protect myself and file a report, or do I keep shielding my dad? This time, something snapped in me. I hung up and drove straight to the police station. The whole time I was shaking, not because I was scared of being there, but because it finally hit me. I wasn't just a victim of identity. I was a victim of my own parents' betrayal. I filed the report, gave them everything I had. The screenshots, the email, The call logs, the IP match, even the statement he gave me during our conversation. They were sympathetic. The officer even told me this kind of thing, parents stealing from their kids, happens more than people realize. But it didn't make it any easier. The worst part came 2 days later, when a detective called me for a follow-up. He said my dad had been interviewed, and my dad admitted it. All of it. Even the gambling. Even the recent attempt to change the login info. But then the detective told me something else. Something that made my skin crawl. My dad wasn't just trying to change the contact info. He was trying to open another loan. In my name. I don't think I've ever felt fury like that in my life. All the moments I'd spent wrestling with guilt, second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd gone too far by involving the police. All of it vanished in an instant. He hadn't just made a mistake. He wasn't some desperate man trying to clean up a mess. He was still doing it, actively, trying to open another loan in my name. While I was filing police reports and being sued for the first one, it wasn't shame driving him anymore. It was entitlement. And I realized something brutal. He never planned to stop. If I hadn't found out, he would have kept using me as his personal ATM until there was nothing left to take. I was just a resource. Not a son. Not even a person. I hung up with the detective, sat in silence for a long time, and then finally called my lawyer again. She didn't even sound surprised, just told me this would actually strengthen the fraud case, and likely push the DA to press charges, and that's when the full weight of it hit me. My dad might go to jail. For real. I should have felt something. Grief, guilt, regret. But all I felt was exhausted. It was like the little kid inside me, the one who still hoped my dad would apologize and fix this, finally died. I told my lawyer to move forward with everything, freeze all further activity on the account, file whatever court documents we needed to stop more debt from being stacked in my name. We started prepping for a hearing. That same night, I got a voicemail from my dad. He was crying. No, sobbing. Full breakdown mode. He said the cops came to the house and took his laptop, that he was sorry things got out of hand, that he only did what he had to. He begged me to call him back, said he didn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison, but he didn't say he was sorry for what he did to me, just sorry he got caught. And then, as if things couldn't get worse, his brother, my uncle, called me the next morning to tell me something my dad never had, something I probably should have known years ago. My uncle's voice was tight, like he'd been holding something in for years, and didn't want to be the one to finally let it out. He told me he'd heard what happened with the police, and he figured I had the right to know the real reason things had spiraled so badly. I braced myself. At this point, I didn't think I could be shocked, and I was wrong. Turns out my dad had filed bankruptcy twice in his 30s and 40s. He'd been in debt most of his adult life. Every time he climbed out of one hole, he dug another. Gambling had always been his escape, but it was more than casual sports betting. My uncle said it started with poker, then moved to horse racing, then online casinos. He lost everything once before, back when I was still a kid. I asked why no one ever told me. He said my dad begged them not to. He didn't want me to see him as a failure, and when I went off to college and started getting internships and offers he never dreamed of, he got obsessed with the idea of not falling behind. Your success made him feel like he was running out of time, my uncle said. He wanted to catch up. Be your equal. That broke something in me. He didn't do this because he needed to survive. He did it because he couldn't handle watching me succeed without him. The money wasn't to save me, it was to compete with me, and when he couldn't do it the honest way, he used the one thing I never thought I had to protect from him, my name. I thanked my uncle, hung up, and sat there staring at the wall. Everything made sense now. The little jabs my dad used to throw when I bought a new laptop, the way he downplayed my promotions, the way he never asked about my job anymore, the silent jealousy behind every proud smile. He wasn't proud. He was resentful. This whole time, I thought I'd been living with a flawed man who made a bad decision. But now, I realized I'd been raised by someone who saw me as a tool the moment he realized I was more successful than he ever was. And that night, I did something I never thought I'd do. Blocking him felt terrifying, like shutting the door on someone I'd always assumed would be part of my life, no matter what. But after everything, hearing that he wasn't just desperate but resentful, I knew I had to draw a line. I needed to protect myself, not just financially, but emotionally. The silence was heavy, though. My dad didn't call, didn't text from another number, didn't show up at my apartment. For the first time in my life, it was just quiet. But that peace didn't last long. About a week later, I got a letter from a lawyer, his lawyer. Inside was a single-page statement asking if I'd be willing to settle the matter privately, in exchange for him assuming responsibility for the debt. The offer sounded noble on the surface, but buried in the fine print? I'd have to drop the fraud claim, permanently. If I agreed, he wouldn't face criminal charges, but I would be legally liable again if he defaulted a second time. Which, let's be real, he absolutely would. This wasn't about him doing the right thing. It was about saving his own skin. He didn't want a record, didn't want jail. He was betting, again, that I'd fold, that I'd put family first, like I always had. that I'd choose him over myself. I took the letter to my own lawyer, who read it, raised one eyebrow, and said, "He's playing chicken." We didn't respond. A few days later, I got an email, then another, then a message through an old social media account I hadn't used in years. All from random people, mutual friends, distant relatives, even someone who claimed to be my dad's old coworker. They all had the same message. "Please don't ruin his life. He's a good man who made a mistake." That's when I knew he was starting a campaign, a full-blown sympathy tour, trying to flip the story before it went to court. But what none of them knew, and what I hadn't told anyone yet, was that I'd found something else. Something my dad probably forgot he left behind in an old shared Dropbox, a PDF, one I opened 2 nights ago, a spreadsheet, with the title, Loan Plans, Backup Names. I blocked his number. That spreadsheet felt like a punch to the chest. I opened it, expecting maybe an old budget or a list of bills. But what I saw was worse than I could have imagined. There were names, dates, phone numbers, birthdays, social security numbers. Some were partially blacked out, but others were fully visible. I recognized one of the names immediately, my cousin. Another was my aunt. A few others were old coworkers, people who had no clue they'd been added to what a master plan. The title, Loan Plans, Backup Name, wasn't enough. This wasn't just about me anymore. My dad had been preparing to do this again, to more people, family, friends. Anyone he could get away with using, hadn't caught. If the collections notice hadn't landed in my mailbox he probably would have just kept going, quietly building his empire of debt in everyone else's name. That was the moment I stopped feeling guilty. I printed the spreadsheet, made copies, sent it to my lawyer, the detective, and even the fraud department at the bank. I didn't leave room for doubt anymore. I wanted this to be airtight. The story wasn't just my dad took out a loan in my name. It was, my dad built a system to do this to people who trusted him. The court date came 2 weeks later. He didn't show up. His lawyer claimed he was dealing with a health issue, but the judge wasn't impressed. The fraud case moved forward. My lawsuit moved forward. The collections claim was frozen. The DA said, based on the new evidence, they'd likely pursue criminal charges for multiple counts of identity. And me? I walked out of the courtroom feeling hollow, not happy, not victorious, just free. I moved into a new apartment last month. Smaller, cheaper, but it's mine. I got a secured credit card and started repairing the damage. My lawyer says it'll take about 12 to 18 months to clean everything up, maybe longer. I haven't unblocked his number, haven't spoken to him since that last voicemail. Sometimes I wonder what he tells himself he thinks about. Does he still believe he did this for us? Or has he finally admitted it was always about him? Either way, I don't care anymore, because here's the truth. The man who raised me taught me everything. How to throw a baseball, how to shake a hand, how to balance a checkbook. But in the end, what he really taught me was who I never wanted.